Welcome to The Gabrielle Lara Show, a podcast dedicated to normalizing the messy middle of entrepreneurship. I am your host, Gabrielle Lara, and I invite entrepreneurs from all walks of life onto this podcast to share what they navigated to get from where they were to where they are now. My hopes of this podcast is to help you feel more seen and heard in your entrepreneurial journey as you navigate your own version of the messy middle. I appreciate you so much for being here. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome back to another episode of the Gabrielle Lara Show. This is going to be such a fun episode, and especially for my spiritual people, I have my medium and good friend here. Her name is Katie. I love her. I met her recently and I immediately signed up for a reading with her, and it was so freaking spot on. It was like scary in the best way possible. And so Katie and I just like connected and kept talking, and I was like, I need to get you on the podcast. I want to selfishly hear your story and I want to share with everyone else because you have really truly like the such good energy, and I know that there is an awesome story sitting in there. So that is what we are going to dive into today. Hello, Katie.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here. I truly am honored, and thank you for that introduction. You are the best. And it's so funny because I actually just had Gabrielle on my podcast, and we talked all about the law of attraction, and we talked about how like attracts like, and there is no coincidence why her and I get along and we feel really connected to each other. We love each other's energy because like attracts like. Yeah, so I am just so grateful to be in your energy and to be here on the podcast.
Oh, this is going to be so good. I'm just feeling it. I am freaking feeling it, guys. Oh my gosh. So, all right, dive right in. Introduce yourself. Who is Katie? What do you do? What is your story? What was your story getting into entrepreneurship? What is your story getting into spirituality? Like, how did all of this come about? Lay it on us. I cannot wait to dive into this.
Oh my goodness, and I can't wait to share, and I love telling my story, and it's funny because each time I tell my story, I just feel more deeply connected to myself each time. You think, how many times can I share the same story over and over again, and it never gets old. It never doesn't impact me, even just me like telling the story. So my name is Katie Parent, and I started my spiritual journey. We'll start there. Back in 2011, I was called to do yoga, just like engage in some of those practices where I'm starting to meditate. I'm starting to slow down a little bit. I was a runner in high school, and I was looking for more of a different kind of workout, and I felt called to yoga, and I also really resonated with the spiritual practices of yoga, and that's where I really learned about breathing, slowing down, the different deities, spiritual deities, and I just started kind of immersing myself little by little. And then I started going out on my own. I started buying crystals. I started reading more. I started to go and talk to psychics. Like I just started to kind of dabble a little bit more and understand a little bit more. My own spiritual connection obviously started when I was younger, and I grew up Catholic. I don't resonate with Catholicism anymore. I actually really, when I was a child, I stopped resonating, and but it's just obviously a way to bridge the gap of like learning about God, learning about spirituality, and building a connection with my faith. So I had a connection with God, but I really didn't have a connection to that particular religion, if that makes sense. And as I grew up, so then I got into yoga, I started connecting deeper to spirituality, learning more about spirituality, and then I engaged in life circumstances that called me to my spirituality, where I really felt like there were certain moments that I could reflect back to as a child, and then I was witnessing in my own life in the present moment, let's just say from like 2010 and on, of like, wow, I feel God with me. I feel spirit with me. Like I actively feel you here. And then I graduated with my bachelor's, And I'll get into all my career history after this. But I graduated with my bachelor's, and then I went immediately into this really toxic relationship. So I have a lot of childhood trauma. And I could sit here for 3 hours telling you about it. So we'll just say I have some trauma. um, and I feel that really set me up to the way that I was showing up in relationships in my early 20s, which I feel like we can all identify in some way. You know, we all are using our 20s to learn about ourselves and the relationships that we have, whether it be friendships or partnerships. So I got into this really negative relationship, and as I started to really feel challenged in that relationship, I started seeing angel numbers. And I started having these vivid dreams. And at that time, also, like a few years prior to that, my grandfather passed away. And that was like the first loved one that I felt like I was a little bit older to understand. I had another grandparent pass away, my stepdad's mother. And of course, sad, devastated, but I was a little bit younger, so it was like a little different. But when my grandfather passed away, my mother's father, like I just felt this deeper connection to him. And I think that when we lose someone, we get catapulted into spirituality, you know, like regardless, because it's like you have to believe that there is something bigger than us. And so I kind of started believing in that. And then 6 months after he died, I had my first visualization of spirit. And when, of course, I was seeing like butterflies, like the monarch butterfly is my symbol for him. So I was seeing butterflies, and I was like, I know that's my grandpa visiting me. Like I just knew. Um, but then like there was one point where I was falling asleep, and I like kind of like woke up, fell back asleep, woke up, fell back asleep, and all of a sudden I had this vision. Like I'll never forget it. It was like the most vivid image of my grandfather against a white wall, bright white light on him, and he just smiled at me. I can get emotional thinking about it because it was like, holy shit. Like my grandfather just visited me. I saw him clear as day. He was moving. I saw his smile lift. Like he legit had this vibrant smile and he had this vibrant energy of peace. And I just smiled and I just was like, wow, that was a visitation. Like that was just like I saw him in my mind. Like it was crazy. And then a few months after that, I had a friend of mine lose a boyfriend a few years prior to cancer. And it was like we were young, you know, we were in our like late teens, early 20s. And she and him had broken up. And then like a few months later, he had passed away. It was like just like this awful, devastating situation. And he came to me in a dream and he wrote down on a piece of paper, stop beating yourself up about it. And I was like, and me and him didn't really have that close of a relationship. I knew that message was for her. So I didn't tell her for a few years because I was newly to these experiences. I had no idea, you know, what was happening. So then like I told her, you know, finally, and it was a great experience for her to like know that. And I was also like experiencing like this intense imposter syndrome. Like, will she believe me? Like, will she even understand what I saw, witnessed, felt? You know, so then I started having those experiences, then graduated college, got into that relationship, felt my own self really connecting spiritually, was getting these messages, these signs. And then in 2018, I had been broken up with that real guy that I was with in my early 20s. I spent a few years on and off with him. It's totally toxic. And I finally like let him go and I met somebody. I should say I reconnected with somebody that I had already kind of like connected with a few years prior, right after me and my ex broke up, but it just like wasn't the right time. So then 2 years later, it was the right time. And me and this guy started dating and we had this great connection, like amazing friendship. Like he became like something that I've always dreamt of, always wanted. And like I said, we we met, we had a great connection a few years prior, but it just didn't land. So then finally it landed. And then I found out that he was addicted to heroin. And it was just like this whirlwind of, you know, I don't even know how to describe it. It was just a really challenging time. It was a whirlwind of stuff. It was like part of me was like, I know this guy. I feel this guy. I love this guy, and I think we can all identify with loving someone who is challenged in some way, whether it be like physically, emotionally, mentally. We all have our stuff that we're working through. And so, like, he got clean and we had all these aspirations for the future. Like, we had all these plans. And then one day he was just having a really tough time and relapsed and passed away. And it's always so hard to talk about.
Oh, please. I really, yeah, take your time.
It's been a few years, so like I really am grounded. Where I was like unhinged. I really was unhinged. I like been using that word lately, and it's just funny because I totally resonate with it. Like after he passed, it was just like it was a whirlwind of a lot of things. But so he passed away so suddenly, tragically, and like he wanted to be clean so bad. He wanted more for his life. And like when he passed, I not only was I grieving like him as a person, I was grieving our future that we wanted together. I was also grieving like his future where he had so much that he wanted to live for, and in just like one moment it was taken away from him. And so I grieve for him too. Even though I know he's at peace, he wouldn't want me to like harbor on that. But that was like a huge part of my grief journey where I was just so sad that his life ended early for him and also selfishly me, because he was this person, like I said, like this best friend, this love. I was so in love with him and where we wanted to go in life, and then we had this connection, this friendship. So, but you know what? It's crazy how I'm so grateful to look back and feel the full circleness of my spirituality, because love never dies. Like love transcends time and space. And if I hadn't built that spiritual practice or spirituality within myself and something bigger than me, I wouldn't have been able to connect with him in the way that I can now. So of course, like in my humanness, like for the first probably 2 years, like I could not even connect spiritually consistently, because of course, like up and down, like I would and I wouldn't, I would and I wouldn't. It's hard to accept that physically someone's not here anymore, especially the love like of your life at that time. So I can look back and say like the connection that him and I built spiritually when he was here, like it's still very much present in this day and time, and it will be forever. And I feel it, like I do. So without kind of talking too much about that, I'll segue into that was 2019. It was early 2019 in March. And then I spent the whole like first year just like really suffering in my grief, really, really, really just crying and feeling and just like just being in that place. And of course, that whole year my sister got married. One of my best friends had her first baby. All these different amazing beautiful moments, which I always said, and I continue to say this, that's what kept me going. Like those moments of joy and those memories that I can cherish forever, like those kept me going, because I was like in the worst pain of my entire life. So that first year I kind of was just like grieving, and I really went into even more survival mode than I was already living, again, being in recovery from childhood trauma. And And like I said, like I wasn't going to talk too much about it, but we'll just say like sexual abuse, emotional abuse, just abandonment, a lot of different stuff that I was dealing with emotionally and physically. And so I remember just being so desperate to like feel at peace and feel freedom and feel security. Like I would constantly be calling psychics and mediums like I need to talk to him, I miss him, like all these things. And like it's so interesting on your healing journey where you can see things unfolding and how all this other stuff came up for me. Like for the fact of like this man that came into my life while I was actively healing all of these wounds that I had inside of me, he also was kind of like filling the void for me. So then when he passed away, it's not like we broke up, like he tragically left me. So then I felt like, and actually physically left me. So then I'm like, oh my gosh, does he love me? Like all these wounds that I previously had before him in my life. So then I'm like healing through that, healing through all this stuff, like layer after layer. And I just remember like crying, God, please make me a medium. Like, I promise you that I will help so many people. Like, I need to connect. Like, I need to connect. And again, like I had already had these experiences, so some like asking for mediumship wasn't something that was too far off from me. It wasn't like this like I mean, the possibilities in our life are endless, right? And like everybody has the ability to do everything, especially have spiritual gifts. But, I was already really, really connected. It wasn't like I didn't believe in God and all of a sudden was like, I want to be a medium. So that's kind of what I'm trying to explain here. So I just remember that moment. I'll never forget it. I was driving to work and I was like hysterical in my car. I spent a lot of time crying in my car, like a lot. Um, and so 6 months, 8 months later, now brings us into the pandemic where we were in lockdown. And this is an incredibly important part of my story because this was the first time for me where I was able to sit with myself and experience stillness. And actually, the first time I felt like my nervous system was regulated. I felt like I had freedom and peace because you're talking about someone who has worked multiple jobs since she was 15 years old, constantly like in crisis, chaos, stressed, depressed, anxious. Like my nervous system was always activated, just whether it be if I was having an emotional experience or stressed or busy, chaos. So the pandemic really helped me to kind of bring myself back to me and like find myself again. And I have a great friend who she used to live in New York and she moved down to Miami. She found her mediumship journey almost in the same way as I did. And I always watched her journey, like she lost her best friend and she became a Reiki master and a medium, and like she landed herself in Miami. So she went from New York to California to Miami. And I watched her journey. I always felt like connected to her journey. Like, this is amazing. Like, she's spiritual. I'm spiritual. I love watching her. She also is a sound healer. So she does like the sound bowls. And I would watch her, and she was always going live during the pandemic. And it was just such a gift that she gave this world. So I started logging on Instagram every day and receiving her healing sessions. And when I tell you, I mean, I would cry. I really opened up to healing like deeper. Now, I'm a therapist. I got my master's in social work and my license. So I'm a licensed therapist. My main focus throughout my career was children and families. So I, of course, live a life where I'm always tapping into healing, mindfulness, therapeutic intervention, coping skills. I teach it, I live it, I breathe it. However, when you go through something so tumultuous, I just couldn't even use anything that I knew. I just was, again, like activated complete survival mode. So I was just receiving so much healing and so much peace and rest. And then she popped on live, and I almost didn't make it, but I was like, oh, great, this is amazing. It was like during the day. It was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm just lounging on the couch, pandemic life. And so I click on it, and she's actually going live with her best friend. And her name is Audrey Sloan Tate, and she goes by Medium Sloan. And she was talking about this spiritual development circle that she was starting. And now, as you know, a lot of us started our businesses, our coaching programs during the pandemic to really just offer our services and start doing some heartfelt service that we really felt called to. And so this was hers. And she marketed it as this group for empaths. So she really didn't even talk about like mediumship or anything like that. Obviously, she identifies as a medium, but she was like, this is for the empath who is always anxious, who is intuitive, but might not have the structure to that intuition, or might not trust themselves because of their anxiety and all those things. So I'm like, that's me. Like, that is legit me. And then also, not to mention that, I forgot to mention that she talks about grief so much. Like, that is a huge part of her business, because she lost a few people in her life tragically as well. So she talks about overcoming grief and how spirituality and mediumship has completely helped her and transformed her life. So I'm like, yeah, sign me up. So I signed up for this group, and it was donation based for a few months, and which was like, so again, such a gift. I signed up, and I was in that program, that group, for 8 months. 8 months. I studied under her. She was my mentor. And I'm going to get off this topic soon. So thank you for being patient and staying with me. There's a lot of things to cover here in my life and my story. But I want to tell you about the first group, because it was really just like incredible. So we're learning about the different clairs. So like when you are intuitive, you have different clairs, they call it. It's like the way that you intuitively receive, download, feel. And so we're learning about those. We're learning about spirit. We're learning about meditation and connecting to source and what it feels like in our body and all the things. And then at the end, we get paired up and we have to read each other's energy. Okay, like,
Oh my gosh.
yeah,
Oh my gosh. I can't wait to hear
literally,
this.
I'm like
Holy cow.
sweating, I'm like nervous. And you're dealing with someone, okay, who's anxious and insecure. Like, that is where I struggle mentally, like extremely. And in my healing journey, I've recovered a lot from that. But when, like, a few years ago, like totally just like in my prime, of course, like grieving, all the things. So I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this. I can't do this. So when we engage in the exercise, I'm like closing my eyes, I'm breathing, I'm like downloading, I'm so clairvoyant. Like, that's how I do a lot of my channeling, is like I see in my mind. And again, if you remember back to when my grandfather visited me, so vivid, like so vivid. So yeah,
That's crazy.
so
That's funny.
crazy. So I saw this woman, me and this woman, Maria, were paired up. And I saw her in a field on a blanket with this little girl. And she's blowing those little dandelions or whatever. I think that's what they're called, like in the wind. And just, she's at peace and feeling so happy and connected. And meanwhile, I don't know this woman. So I'm questioning myself. Does she even have children? Like, Katie, like, don't say it. Don't say it. Just pretend like you didn't see anything, like you don't know anything, blah, blah, blah. And here's the thing. I said, no, trust yourself. You can do this. Like, just say it. So I told her what I saw, what I felt. And she's like, Katie, she pulls down her computer and she shows her little daughter like sitting next to her. And she's like, you have no idea. She's like, Katie, that's my safe place. She's like, whenever I feel upset or anxious or anything, I visualize myself in a field with my children on a blanket, like blowing the dandelions, like with flowers, like all the things. And I was just like, oh my God, like, oh my God, oh my God, what? And like as soon as we got off that call, I went hysterically crying, hysterical, because not only did I feel the energy in my body, and that was the first time I really like held it, but I also just like witnessed my own power, and I was like, holy, just oh my gosh. So then 8 months later, I gained the skills, the support, the practice to really master mediumship. And like I always say this too, like with mediumship or spirituality, like any person who's giving you any spiritual guidance or channeling spirit or giving you messages about your own life or anything like that, it's so important to be ethical. So the fact that like I had a mentor with all of that, I'm so grateful that that experience was given to me, like spirit led me, so I asked and I received, just not in the way that I thought, but like God and spirit brought me this mentor, and I really witnessed my own gifts and my own power, so I know what it feels like to really step into that in that place. And so our final exercise was to open ourselves up to the public and practice readings, and I haven't stopped, and now I literally run my business as a huge part of it is mediumship, and I channel, and it's amazing. So I have the ability to see, hear, feel, and know, so my intuition is extremely strong. I have visuals in my mind. I hear spirit speaking to me. And it's just amazing. It's just amazing. So that is my story in the sense of like how my spirituality really came to be, my spiritual awakening, a little bit of my healing journey. And just to kind of wrap that story up, I am a licensed therapist. I'm turning 32, and my whole, chunk of my 20s was dedicated to social work, getting my master's, becoming licensed, dedicating myself to children and families and being a therapist for them. And then um, I opened up Strengthen the Soul is my business. Before I even became a medium, I started that business in the pandemic, to supplement my income, because I wanted to do more coaching. So I said, I'm gonna do coaching, and I think I'm really gonna love it. And I already have been extremely passionate about connecting with my community and connecting with other women. And before I even started my business, I created this event series in the community called the Empowerment Workshop Event Series, where I bring other leaders in the community and our community together, and we talk about ways to help us empower ourselves to be our best selves. And the reason why I call it Empowerment Workshop Event is because as a therapist, I was witnessing the power of therapeutic intervention with my one-on-one clients, and then, you know, my coaching clients. And I really saw this need for so many people to benefit from what I have to offer, what you have to offer, what many other women or leaders, women and men, leaders in the community have to offer. And I saw the barriers to positive change. I saw the barriers not only to receiving help, but also just like how people and human behavior prevents us from living the life that we desire. So I really wanted to create an event where we just tailor different topics to helping people. And so I created that event, and then I have the coaching, I have the mediumship. Along the way, I became a Reiki master, and I also believe in somatics. So I use the body as a tool. Our breath work, tapping, regulating our nervous system with the body, moving our body. So all of that combined is where I lead my business and my community into healing and life transformation for people.
Oh my goodness. That is such an incredible well, first of all, I appreciate you being so vulnerable and open and sharing your healing wounds throughout that, because that's really the goal of this podcast, is to help people feel seen and
Yeah,
heard through other people's stories. And just bringing entrepreneurs like yourself who are so powerful and so wonderful, and hoping that the listeners, find, relatability in your story so they don't feel so, alone. And just the fact that you opened up the way you did, I appreciate so much. So
of
thank you.
course.
Thank you. Thank you. So I have about 400 questions, but the first one that I want to ask is I'd love to hear some obstacles that you've navigated since starting your business. Like, is there anything, what messy middle did you navigate getting your business off the ground, or maybe
Yeah,
even still?
100%. I have so much to say about that, and I'll try to like keep it kind of bullet pointed, if you could say. So the first thing, and I want to normalize this for everybody, is that I really didn't know what I was doing. I just kind of started, and for me, that was the best way. Like I really truly didn't have any money to invest into like a business mentor or even somebody to make my website, or what do I do in this business? Like how do I run this business? I just kind of like started it and learned as I went. And even though that's okay to do that, like it legit is okay to do that. However, I find that like I feel like I might be a little bit further along in my business if I had a little bit more structure to forming that business. So, obviously, we don't know what we don't know. So, now a few years in looking back, I could probably reflect. I know a little bit more now. So, I also want to embrace the sense of like, you kind of are planted where you are and it's okay. And like, I was exactly where I needed to be, because at the same time, I also was working a full time job, which I feel like a lot of business owners, we do that. We kind of start our business and plant the seeds of our business or things that we're passionate about while we're working, even if it's just an idea or just like setting up a website, thinking about a name. So I worked a full-time job, and I also have another business, an event planning business. I worked those two things full time, all while starting my Strength in the Soul business. So I kind of like worked everything up till that one day where I decided I know exactly what I want to do and what I want to focus on. And I quit my 9 to 5. And I've been full time for a little over a year now. So that's like one thing that I just wish I had a little bit more structure to my business when I started. Also, just like emotionally, I feel like there was a huge challenge for me and still is of not comparing myself to other coaches in the industry, especially when it comes to structure in their business. So I find that like everybody has these beautiful landing pages, these marketing materials, and consistency in posting on social media and all of these things. And yet, I've done all of that for myself. I've built my website, I post on social media, I create programs, I'm on social media marketing myself. But I feel when I look at other people's, I'm like, oh my God, mine is not good enough. This is why I'm not successful. This is why, I'm not bringing in the money. This is why I'm not getting the clientele. Like, how can I make this better? How can I make this easier for myself? So there's a lot of like negative self talk, there's a lot of limiting beliefs. And I do have moments of true pride, gratitude, and praise. Like, I really do, because at the end of the day, like, I'm still paying my bills. I'm still getting clients. I'm still, just feeling really abundant in my life. It's just not where I want it to be, essentially. So I go up and down with the comparison, believing in myself, or just understanding where I need to be in my business.
Oof. I am just the fact that you spoke to
Mhm.
what you're dealing with currently. I don't know if anybody has done that on the podcast yet. And the fact that you come right in
Mhm.
and, like, you say it, "I
Mhm.
compare myself and it sucks," and I can
Mhm. Yeah.
1,000% relate to that.
Mhm.
We all do, and that is the point of all of this is, like, sharing it
Mhm.
and being like, "This is normal." Like, if you're
Yeah,
I cry, like,
legit.
9 times a
Yeah.
week because of my business, but, like, in beautiful ways, but there are some times where you're
Yeah.
like, "Holy shit, I need to go get a job." Like,
Mhm.
we all do it, and, like, it's so
Mhm.
normal regardless of where you are, and I
Of
love that you
course.
said that.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so
Yeah,
much.
for validating me. It's definitely not easy. And one thing that I've really taken pride in and of who I am as a leader is that I embrace everything about my life and who I am and what I experience. Like there's absolutely no shame in acknowledging like what I'm experiencing. It doesn't make me weak. It's so interesting how I talk badly, not badly, but talk negative sometimes about myself or my business, but yet I'm over here saying, there's no shame in recognizing like what I'm experiencing, So it's a double-edged sword and I guess in that way, but yeah.
We all do. We're
Mhm.
all our own worst enemies, and that is, I feel like, why I'm
Mhm.
so attracted to the law of attraction because it really makes you pause and say,
Mhm.
"Okay, that is how I'm talking to myself." Right? Like, I catch myself doing that because I share my story a lot. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't make money for 6 months, and sometimes I kinda halt myself where I'm just like, I
Mhm.
keep speaking about the shit that I went through.
Yeah.
I wanna start talking about the good things, right? But sometimes I find that it's such a
100%.
highlight reel where it's, like, constant good things, but it's
Yeah.
like there really has to be a balance, and, how we said, like, I cry 9 times a week, and then I'm, like, jumping for joy the other times, and it's like, it is such a balance, and I love how you alluded to that, but, like, it can be a double-edged sword, like, we always are our own worst enemy, and I find that that's why it's so important
Yes.
to be in the right room, to find people who will be like,
Yep.
"Katie, like, listen to how you're speaking right now," and really make you be like, "Oh, okay," because we
Mhm.
fall into that trap of doing it. And so I love how you built that
Thank you so
community
much.
for
I
yourself.
think as a leader and a coach specifically, and if you're in the coaching industry, you are essentially keeping other people accountable on their journey, holding space for other people. I think it's so important for other people to know, like, don't put me on a pedestal. I struggle just as much as you. And I
Right.
feel like once I realized that I was putting other people on pedestals, and I'm like, what the heck? Like I could put my own self on a pedestal. Once I kind of realized that shift, that perspective shift was everything for me. Like I almost needed to hear it of like, you put someone else on a pedestal for me. Oh my God, I do. I actually do. Oh. So,
Mhm.
I think I don't want anyone
Yeah.
to ever think like anybody that I'm leading into entrepreneurship or healing, I don't want them to think that like I'm on a pedestal. Like, I've done the work, like, I've done the
Right.
work, and I
Right.
have the realizations, I have the healing, and the continuous healing, I have all of that, so I can be the light for you in your
Mhm.
darkness, I can be the light for you in your journey, and I was right there with you.
Mm. And that's the beautiful thing. That's what I love so much about the coaching industry is so often it's like people
Yeah.
are coaching it because they've walked it. Does that mean that we have all the answers? No, but that we can help you with what it is. And like I always tell people, I'll find your niche. I can't find mine. Like it took me for I needed help finding mine too. Like
Yeah.
sometimes we just need help. And like there's one thing of finding it, another thing of stepping into it, but it's like that's what we do. We've
Yeah.
walked the walk. We feel the pain and no one is 110% there. And
Mhm.
we can be a step
Exactly.
ahead and still help
Exactly.
you. Oh my gosh. So what are some like beautiful experiences that you've had so far in your business?
So, some beautiful experiences is that, I mean, being a medium itself is one of the most oh my gosh, it's, a sun shower outside that I love that, it's so beautiful. Um,
Oh, that's so
there's bound to
cool.
be a rainbow, so that's incredible. But,
Mm,
being a medium
yeah.
is one of the best experiences of my life. It has healed parts of my soul that were like totally wounded and in pain that I never thought could experience peace again. Because when you channel spirit, you feel their energy and they are the highest vibration. um I feel the love and I feel happiness, I feel alignment, I feel just a true sense of purpose within my soul. And the intense readings that I've done for people, like I've given people healing. I've given people messages that they were looking for.
Mm.
I've given people confirmation, answers, like, and connection. I've given people connection, like, and like I told you guys before, that moment where I was like begging and pleading God to make me a medium, that desperation inside of my pain of saying, please give me something, I can give that to people now. So it was given to me and I can give that to people by channeling their loved ones and the messages that they, are seeking. Um, in my therapy and coaching position, I have helped people transform their life. I mean, people have quit their jobs, people have healed through things that they never thought possible, people have created businesses and have excelled in businesses. I mean, like, money speaking, like money wise, like people are making money they never dreamt of, but also like people are witnessing themselves in true power. So to like witness that I am a conduit to their healing and their life transformation is incredible. To be a speaker at my own event and bring the community together and sell out events where I am like speaking, it's like crazy. Like it's a feeling like on
Mm.
anything on other oh, I can't speak now. Unlike anything else. And my business won Best of Hudson Valley. It's a magazine here in the Hudson Valley, New York, where they pick different category of businesses in different categories to win, and the community votes, and I won Best Mind Body Program. So that was like a huge achievement for me, such a beautiful blessing, because I I didn't even know I was nominated. So yeah, that was
Wow. Oh my
was like
gosh. That's
everything to me, because like
so
my friend
beautiful.
texted me and she's like, I voted for you, and I was like, what for what?
Excuse
And then
me?
I looked, I'm
Come
like,
again?
oh my god, excuse. And then, all my friends and
That's
family
amazing.
voted, all like the community voted for me, and I won. And it was just like the most amazing experience. And I found out the weekend my niece was born. So amazing.
Oh,
Yeah. And,
that's so beautiful.
so that was just amazing. And it wasn't because and I think I shared this when I met you, like it wasn't the fact that I won best, because it's like that being labeled as the best is so like egotistical, essentially, like it feeds your ego, like, yeah, I'm the best. What? But like, it's like, no, actually, like we're all the best, but like the fact that I was recognized and published in a magazine for that, it just means that like I'm being seen. Like my mission is visible to more than just my community. Like the fact that I help people with their mind, their body, and their soul, like that's being seen out there. My mission is visible. And like that's incredible. So,
Mm,
it just like was amazing for
wow.
me. And then as of recently, like I'm publishing my first book this week. It's coming out and my book launch party is in 10 days. And it's the first book to a 3-part series. It's called the Seeking Safety Collection. It's information and tools to help you reclaim safety in your mind, your body, and your soul. Because one thing about me is now that
Mm,
I'm like, I've done all this work the last, let's just say, 10 plus years, getting my master's degree, getting different certifications, all these different modalities, 10 years of therapeutic experience, now like 4 or 5 years of coaching experience, community events, all these different things, Reiki master. I can now take all these different skills and professional experience and life experience and pour it into something where people can like tangibly read. And then I also believe that you need to create a harmonious relationship between your mind, your body, and your soul for optimal healing. You know, like you can't just work on your mindset. You have to work on all three at the same time. Because like if you're just working on your mindset and you're not even thinking about your body, well, what happens when your body is reacting to something and your mind just everything like goes out the window that you worked on? So it's, you know, I think it's really important, and I can provide that to people because I have experience in every single area. You know, it's not like I'm just doing spirituality. I'm not just doing using my therapist hat or, you know, energy healing. I'm combining everything. And that's what this healing series is about. So the first is about creating safety in your life, because I feel like we need to feel safe to heal. We need to feel safe to experience change. We need to feel safe in healing through what made us feel unsafe in the first place. Um, and then the second book is called Unwounded from the Roots Up. So it's really healing through the chakra system and also healing your emotions, your energy. So that's like the meat and potatoes of the series. It's going to be a bigger book. And then the third part of that series is called Raising Validated Children, and it's going to be healing the next generation. So it's like this beautiful series, and that's like this highlight of my life right now where I'm just like, I can't believe this is coming to life, and I'm just so happy and proud of myself.
I was just gonna say, you must feel
You know,
so proud of yourself.
I really do. And sometimes it's really hard. My life feels really hard. I'm single, I support myself, my family doesn't live in the area, and this has been my life for over 10 years. So it's kind of like I haven't had a break since my early 20s,
Mhm.
and sometimes like I just feel defeated. Like I just feel defeated. Like I'm living out my
Mhm.
dreams and my purpose, and yet sometimes it just feels really hard to live. Like I don't mean live as meaning like I'm questioning my life, but
Mhm.
I mean even though I've experienced that at some points with grief especially, um I just mean like function. Like, oh my gosh, like I don't have the energy to do this today. I can't pay my bills because life is very expensive right now. So it's like there's so many different factors of
Mhm.
stress in our lives, and I think that there is that duality of life where you have all these beautiful, amazing, proud, special moments in your life, but life doesn't stop. Life doesn't stop. So that is a huge part of
Right.
my book too. The first book, the Seeking Safety collection. It's all about how to help you navigate through life's greatest challenges. And that's like part of my slogan of my
Excellent.
business, like helping you to navigate through life's greatest challenges, because life does not stop for anybody. Challenges don't stop. You could be on the highest
Mhm.
like mountain feeling so amazing and free, which I have felt in my life recently. And then there's life there to smack you in the face in some capacity, but you cannot forget those special moments. They really do help me to keep going. Um and I've always said that because life really smacked me in my face when, my boyfriend passed away, and I didn't I've dealt with challenges before, but I did not understand that kind of challenge. That was no,
Oh,
nothing.
absolutely. Like, what? There's nothing that
Absolutely
could
nothing.
prepare you for that. Nothing. Nothing at all. And oh, I appreciate you sharing that so much. Like, this has just been such a beautiful unfolding.
Absolutely.
And I have two last questions that I want to ask you. So the first one is, what is one thing that you wish you could go back and tell yourself at the start of your business?
You are more powerful than you think.
Wow.
Wow!
I've heard that message like four times.
And I didn't
I
even
didn't
waver.
meditate.
It just
That's
kinda
what
came
I
out of
did.
my mouth.
I did meditation this morning, and that
Wow.
was the mantra. The power is within me. I am more powerful than I think. That is, and I have to
Yes.
ask you this, like, and I will let you finish in a second. When you were telling your story in the beginning, and I meant to like say this when you were finished, but I just forgot. The doors closed.
Uh-huh.
A fly came out of freaking nowhere. and flew around for like the last half of
Wow.
your story, and the second you stopped, it went away. And I don't know if that is a sign for you, but like that, and
Interesting.
then it kept landing on my right
No,
arm.
it definitely is a sign. I think I'll
That's
look it
crazy.
up because I don't
That's
know it
crazy.
off the top of my head. Some of them I do, but flies I know are like definitely
Yeah.
like there's some spiritual meaning there. So I will look it up, and for everyone listening, look it up because it's all a
Um,
message for all of us.
that
I
it
did
just
see it
kept
once
landing on my
actually.
right arm. I don't know. You probably like if you guys watch this on YouTube, you not falling around, but I was just like, what the
Wow.
hell? But it stopped immediately after you finished your
Oh
story.
my gosh.
Crazy. Anyways,
No.
continue.
Yeah, yes.
So you have power
I
within
love
you. We
it.
know that
But yeah, like,
now.
I just wish, I would go back to tell myself not to question myself, that you are more powerful than you think. Like, and it's funny because one of my best friends, I
Mm.
really lean on her a lot of, like, talking about, like, my, mental health, what I'm going through, and, she always says to me, like, you don't see yourself the way that other people see you. Like, you just don't, like there's a disconnect there. So I know that is something that I needed when I first started my business.
Oh, I love that. And then I want to ask you, where can people get in touch with you? Where can they
Oh,
find
for
you?
that.
I'm going to add a link to the book series below. And before you jump in on that, guys, I just have to say the reading that I received from Katie was the most beautiful experience I've had with a medium. And I have done a lot of psychics and mediums. It was so beautiful because there are times that I've been to mediums where it just was very dark, very heavy. And with
Mhm.
Katie, not saying it was all light and fluffy, but like the way that you delivered it was so
Ah!
grounding. I'm getting chills down my right leg again for the billionth time. I cannot recommend it enough. And if that is something that you have been wanting to seek, I truly cannot recommend Katie enough.
Oh,
So,
thank
Katie,
you
where
so
can people
much.
find you
So my
and book sessions
Instagram
like that with you?
is Strengthen the Soul. It's just that one, it's those 3 words put together, just spelled exactly how it is, Strengthen the Soul. There are a few imposters out there of me, so I apologize in advance, but also very important to know, if you are looking me up on Instagram, there is no other variation of my name. So it's just Strengthen the Soul, and then you can also access me through my website, strengthenthesoul.com. I have a podcast, the Strengthen the Soul podcast, and you can email me specifically at strengthenthesoul@yahoo.com if you wanted to just like quickly email me. Um, but those are the best ways to get in touch with me.
Thank you so much. Everything is below in the show notes, guys, so you can just click on over and go hang out with Katie. Thank you, thank you,
Yes, thank
thank
you
you
so
for
much.
coming on
And
here
one
today. I
last
really
thought,
appreciate it.
the book will be available on Amazon, and it'll be called The Seeking Safety Collection.
Oh, that's so cool. I'm
Mhm.
going to put that in the link below, guys, because by the time this airs, the book will be
I'm
out. So
so
you can just click
excited.
over. I cannot wait to read those. I'm so excited. Did you enjoy today's episode? If so, I would be super appreciative if you left a review and a rating and shared this with a friend so that I can continue to bring you value every single week. I'll see you next time.